Today we're gonna make the tarte de Demoiselle Tatin. Two sisters invented that tart years and years ago, and it's a marvelous dish. It's upside down caramelized apple tart. This is an amazing delicacy where you cook some half apples into butter and sugar and caramelize them. And those flavors, butter, caramelized sugar, and apple, blended together, and with a flaky pastry crust, it's delightful. It's amazing. Let's do this. All right, and now I'm going to show you, regardless of what I'm going to do with apples, I'm going to show you my favorite ways of doing apples, and there are good reasons. I like to explain the reasons of why I do something different than others. I'm trying to keep the shape of the apple so that depending on what you're going to do, you have a nice shape and also waste as little of the product as possible. So I start with a melon baller, also called a Parisian scooper. Parisian because it's a cut, it's a potato cut, classic cuisine. That's a little bowl that's made with a Parisian scooper, and you have two different sizes, and also you can do melon balls or whatever other fruit balls that you can do with that tool. And I like to use it because it has good control and the blade doesn't slip like a paring knife might, and you just remove what you need to remove, no more. So I just use this on both ends. And then the other tool I use is a économe. In French it's called an économe, and it's your peeler and potato peeler, apple peeler. The beauty of this, and the reason it's called économe from the word economy, so you are not wasting your food product, and it's very consistent, and also at the end your product keeps its shape. Okay, so I start peeling it this way, and I like to go around and around and around, but you may use a different technique, but using the right tool makes a big difference. And then just up peel, keep turning around, steady, and I only remove the skin. All the apple stays on, the fruit is not wasted. Notice that I do not prepare a water with lemon juice to put the apples in, because I do not want to dilute there we go. I do not want to dilute the vitamins, water-soluble vitamins, and it's extra steps that are not needed. If the apple turns a little brown, it's okay in a baking process technique, but using the right tool makes a big difference. And then just up peel, keep turning around, steady, and I only remove the skin. All the apple stays on, the fruit is not wasted. Notice that I do not prepare a water with lemon juice to put the apples in, because I do not want to dilute there we go. I do not want to dilute the vitamins, water-soluble vitamins, and it's extra steps that are not needed. If the apple turns a little brown, it's okay in a baking process. I will cut it, by the way. I will also cut it in half, and also with the melon baller I will remove the center. And very important to remove all the center, so you do not have any of that little skin that wraps the seed. It's tough and doesn't break down in a baking process, and it's very it's not pleasing at all. So, and you see that both halves are still going to remain the same. No excess has been removed, very little waste. So for the Tarte Tatin, we're going to use a different type of dough. These are scraps from a puff pastry dough. You can buy that puff pastry dough. Puff pastry dough is a very flaky dough that it's basically, when you make it, it's a long process to make, so you probably will buy it. It's a layered dough, many layers of dough, many layers of butter, and then when you bake it in the oven it gets flaky. Now these are scraps. It's a good way to use scraps when doing the Tarte Tatin. So we're putting never mix a dough that it's a puff pastry scraps. Just layer the scraps together, and then sprinkle a little flour, and then you gotta roll it together. Now you could also it won't exactly be a Tarte Tatin, but if you do not have it, do not want to buy in a freezer section of your grocery store, so puff pastry, then just maybe use your favorite apple pie dough, okay? And it'll be a variation on the Tarte Tatin. So you just roll it. We're gonna roll it, prep it, and then we'll work on the apples. But you want to get this preset. We wanted to cover it. We're gonna make the tart in this pan, and we want this to cover the pan. It doesn't have to be completely regular. Try to make sure that it's big enough to cover the tart, the pan, and that should do it. Yes, you see this? Okay, so now we can set this aside, and then we're gonna work on the apple. I already halved the apple. Notice again, as I said before, when I work with apple, no need for apple lemon water and drain them and all this stuff. So just the apples, and we get started on the next step. So here I am going to start melting the butter. A stick and a half of butter for now. There we go. Start melting the butter a little bit, and I will add the sugar. And one of the first steps we're going to do is caramelize the butter with the sugar. I like to give the butter a little bit of a head start before I start putting in the sugar. So notice this is a pan that is going to go in the oven. So hold the handle. It's an oven-safe pan. So this is really this tart is very special because you caramelize the butter and the sugar together, and then we're gonna add a crown of apples and pre-cook it and put the dough on top and pre-cook it partially on the stove top, and then we'll finish baking the dough and the rest of the apples in the oven, and it's really a great item. So now that we are the butter is almost melted. The pan is getting warm, so the butter is going to melt faster. I'm going to start adding the sugar. Let the sugar absorb the melted butter. It looks like a lot of sugar, but actually it's a lot of apples. And those apples, the Granny Smith apples, are very acidic. They are excellent for baking, and because they hold their shape well, and that acidity works well with get balanced with the sugar, and it works very well together. So it's got a lot of flavor. Upside down apple tart by the time it gets out. It's not that complicated to make, actually. So now that all the butter is melted, we're gonna crank up the heat a little bit, and I will start caramelizing that before I add the apples, the crown of apples. You want to caramelize it so that because once you add the apples in there, the apples will release some juice, natural juice, and it will kind of slow down the caramelization process. So you want to Okay, so you see it's browning. We're almost there. It's getting a nice caramel color. And very shortly we're gonna add the apples. So it's a lot of apple, very rich, flavorful. I need to increase the temperature, by the way, of the oven to 400. 400. Start preheat. There we go. Okay, so now it's time to put the apple in there. Apples. So don't burn your fingers. Side by side, making a crown. If you need to adjust them, you can use a paring knife, but I'm going to pre-place them and then adjust them. See how much apple that pie is going to have. Just don't dip your fingers in there, in the sugar. Caramelized butter and sugar. It is pretty hot. Okay, I'm a little short, so I'm going to quickly peel an apple and add it to it. So this was the skillet being a little larger than what I had in mind. It took an extra couple of apples that we quickly peeled and cored, and here it is. You really want them to be really packed in a crown because the apples are going to shrink. Okay, and so now I'm gonna put the dough on it. Like so. Fold a little bit of the dough inside, a bit of the excess of the dough on the inside, as long as you don't have too much dough. If they have too much dough, then you would have to trim it. But a little bit of dough will give you a little border, that'll be fine. Border here, and we're gonna turn on the heat for a little while, about 5-10 minutes, and then we'll finish it in the oven. The oven is preheated 400 degrees. I'm also going to use a fork and duck the top so it doesn't bubble up, so the steam can escape. Medium heat to cook partially the apple into the with the butter and caramelized apple. So we're gonna cook it for about 10 minutes and then finish it in the oven 400 degrees for probably another 30 minutes to make sure that the dough of pastry is fully cooked and flaky and crispy. Okay, it's been 10 minutes and now we are to get the apples partially cooked already in caramelized sugar, and now we're gonna take it and put it in a 400 degree oven for at least 30 minutes and then we'll check. Okay, it's been about 40 minutes now and in the oven, and we're gonna pull it out. Check it. It looks like it's got a nice color. The crust fully flaky and crispy, fully done. And then we're gonna let it set now. And the pectin released by the apple, the caramelized butter, and the juice of the apple is gonna really do this thing. And then when it's cooled down enough, like room temperature, when it's cooled down enough to gelify a little bit, we will flip it upside down. If necessary to serve it, we can warm it up a little bit and serve it. We could serve it with à la mode or just nature as it is. Okay? Well, in my excitement when I did my pie, the apple tart tatin yesterday, I forgot to show you how I actually flipped over the tart. So I showed it to you finished, and then so what I did here is I took a large plate, a little bit larger than this actually, so that it would really go a little bit over the pie. This was the pan I used for the pie. Well, actually, I call it the pie, but it's a Tarte Tatin. So, and then I put it here. Before I did that, let me mention that I let it sit for at least an hour, cool down, so that I can get set and it's all painting, it cools down, so about an hour. And then when it's come to room temperature, when I'm ready to flip it on the plate, I warm up a little bit the bottom to make sure it's loose. I make sure also at the same time that it's the crust, it's not stuck to the edge of the pan, and I make sure it's loose. Then I turn it off, don't get it too hot, just to loosen the base. And then I put the plate on top of the crust, and then carefully I take this carefully with of course a pan holder, and I hold it well, and then flip it upside down like this. Et voila, the tart. And here comes the Tarte Tatin, finished, plated, with a scoop of vanilla ice cream, and we'll learn how to make vanilla ice cream in one of our future videos as well. Doesn't look yummy? And here's the whole tart right here, minus one slice. Nice and caramelized. You still see the shape of those apples. Yummy. Generally it is served warm, and here it is shown served a la mode with a scoop of vanilla ice cream. Comments are welcome, and do not forget to subscribe. There'll be plenty more recipes to come.